Hey there, welcome back to another video. I'm Baker Betty, and today we are going to make a cobbler. Now, a cobbler is traditionally a fruit-based dessert that has some type of topping over the top. Typically something like a biscuit or a dumpling topping, although some people do make a batter type topping and pour that over the top. But the kind we are making today is the kind that has a biscuit topping, and I personally believe this is the true cobbler because cobbler gets its name from the topping looking like a cobbled road. Now, this recipe is another one of my customizable recipes. It can be made with any kind of fruit you want, and as always, all of the ingredient amounts are listed in the written post, which is linked in the description. Okay, so to make the filling for the cobbler, we just need a few simple components. You need about 2 pounds, which is 900 grams of fruit, and this can be really any fruit you like. I'm making a triple berry cobbler today, so I'm using strawberries, raspberries, and blueberries, but you could use peaches, you could use apples, really any fruit you like. Now that is the weight of the fruit that's going into the filling, so if you get something like apples, remember you'll be cutting the core out, so you want to account for that when you do purchase the fruit, that you'll need a little extra weight. So for small fruits like blueberries, raspberries, you don't need to cut them obviously, just wash them. But then for larger fruits like strawberries, I usually quarter them or halve them if they're a little bit smaller. And for apples or pears or peaches, you would want to slice them about a 1/2 inch thick. So the next ingredient you need is sugar, and you can actually use granulated sugar or brown sugar. Now in the written recipe, it does list a range of sugar. So if you like a little bit of a sweeter filling, or if your fruit is a really tart fruit, like rhubarb, you might want to use the larger amount of sugar, or if you like a little bit of a less sweet filling, then you would want to use the smaller amount. Now we also need an acidic ingredient. So something like lemon juice, or you could use apple cider vinegar or orange juice. I'm using lemon juice today. You also need some cornstarch, and this is going to help thicken up our filling so that the juices get really nice and thick. And then of course we always need some salt, which just rounds out our flavors. And then you can add any kind of flavorings you want. Now in the written recipe, I give a lot of different options for you to kind of choose from to help you flavor your filling, but you can add any kinds of spices or extracts. You could also add zest like orange zest or lemon zest. I'm just adding a tiny bit of cardamom today because that goes really well with berries, but you can really get creative with this and flavor it however you like. And then I'm just tossing this all together to make sure everything is evenly distributed. Now there's also some butter listed in the ingredients for the filling. That is going to be dotted over top of the filling before we put our topping on, and that just helps keep it really rich and moist. So we'll leave that to the side for now, and now we can make our topping. So for the topping for our cobbler, we're just gonna make my classic biscuit recipe. And if you've ever made my biscuits before, you know that we typically put it out on the countertop and fold the dough over itself a few times to create really nice layers. But for the topping, we don't need to do that. So we're going to stop right after mixing, and then that's just going to go right on top of our fruit filling. So I have some flour in my mixing bowl here, and I'm going to add the rest of my dry ingredients. So I have some baking powder and baking soda for our leavening. Now my traditional biscuit recipe doesn't have sugar in it, but I am adding a little bit of sugar into this topping just to give it a little bit of sweetness. And then we also need salt. So that's it for our dry ingredients, and just go ahead and mix that together. And now we're going to cut our butter through the flour. If you have a pastry blender, you can do that. I'm actually just going to use my fingers here today because it's very quick and easy to do it that way. So I'm just going to kind of toss the butter through the flour, and then I'm going to use the tips of my fingers to kind of press all the fat into the flour and kind of flatten it out so that it gets more evenly distributed through the flour and we have lots of little pieces mixed throughout. Those pieces of butter melt in the oven and create lots of steam, and that's what kind of creates flakiness for biscuits, and it's gonna make a really delicious topping for our cobbler. Okay, so once the mixture kind of looks like this, there's lots of little pieces and a few bigger pieces mixed throughout, we can go ahead and add our buttermilk. So because this recipe does have baking soda in it, we do need the acidity from buttermilk, but if you don't have buttermilk on hand, there are some substitute suggestions in the written recipe for you to make a substitute. So I'm just gently stirring this together until a pretty thick dough forms. I don't want to be too aggressive with it, and I don't want to stir for too long because I want that topping to stay really nice and tender and flaky. And it's going to look very incohesive and kind of shaggy. So if you can see that in the video, you can see that this dough it's not very cohesive at all. And I'm probably only spending about 15 to 20 seconds mixing, and then I'm gonna stop. Okay, so now we have our filling, we have our topping. Let's go ahead and assemble our cobbler. Okay, so I have a greased 9x13 pan. You can use really anything you want. If you have pan spray, you can use that. I just took a stick of butter and rubbed it all around the pan because butter always makes everything better. And we're just going to add our filling into our pan. And if there's a lot of juices at the bottom, you can go ahead and add those. We don't have a bottom crust to this, so we don't have to worry about a soggy bottom the way you do with a traditional fruit pie. So you can just go ahead and add all of those in. Now, I also forgot to mention, you can use frozen fruit with this. It does work with frozen fruit, but just be aware frozen fruit does release more liquid in the oven, so the filling will probably be a little more juicy, and you might want to cook it just a little bit longer if you use frozen fruit. Okay, so we have our filling in the dish. We're going to take that butter and dot it over the top. You just want little bits all over. Okay, now for our topping, you can kind of do this however you like. You can use a spoon and kind of scoop it over the top, or even a cookie scoop, but I'm just taking my hands and kind of breaking off pieces of the dough and just spreading that out over the filling. I'm leaving some space so that you can see the berries through, but just dot your topping all over the top of the filling. But as you can see, that's where cobbler gets its name, is it kind of looks like a cobbled road once it bakes, because you have all of these kind of uneven pieces of dough throughout the top. Now before we go into the oven, I'm just brushing a little bit of melted butter over the top of all of our biscuit toppings, and then I'm going to dust a little bit of coarse sugar over the top. I have some turbinado sugar here. That is completely optional. I just really like the texture that it gives. And if you don't have coarse sugar, you can either just not do any sugar on top or use some granulated sugar. Okay, we're going to bake this at 350 for about 50 to 60 minutes. You do want to check on it towards the end of baking. If the biscuits are starting to get really dark on top, you can tent a piece of foil over the top. And we know this is done baking when the filling is bubbling in the center. You want to look for it to bubble in the center, not just on the edges. So I just pulled our cobbler out of the oven. It took about 50 minutes to bake, and it smells incredible. Now you do want to let it sit for just about 15 minutes before you scoop it and serve it, just to let the juices thicken up a little bit. And you can serve it just as is, or it's also amazing topped with some whipped cream or some vanilla ice cream. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you are subscribed so you never miss a video. And if you have any questions, you can leave those in the comment section. I'm always happy to try and answer those. I'll see you next time. Bye.